Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me tonight. Happy to end the Monday, that first day back at work, with some fun times going on tonight. I'm very excited about my guest tonight. I saw his book it was a Kickstarter promotion, and I missed the Kickstarter promotion because I had to decide whether to buy awesome books or pay my mortgage. And I need some place to store the awesome books, so I didn't get to do it. But he did send me one of the books, and the art. I'll show the cover was attention grabbing right away. And, it's one of those things where it's like this cover's so sick that I hope the book lives up to it, and I am very happy to say that it did. So I am super pumped to have him on here tonight, Mr. S.A. Klopfenstein. Oh, hold on, I pushed the wrong button. I was so well prepared and then blew it. Hold on. There we go. How are you doing this afternoon, sir? It's evening by you, I would say.
Yeah. It's about 7:00, so I'm great. Yeah, it's a good Monday, and the book's finally out, so that's kind of a big sigh of relief as well. At least the digital version is out. The physical books are still in the production process, but yeah, it's been this book has been the one that has felt like the longest lead up process, because I did the Kickstarter at the beginning of the year, and then I guess not the beginning of the year, I think the end of March, but it was a while ago now. And so I feel like I've been talking about it for a long time and posting about it and all these things, and now people are finally reading it. And when people ask when can I read it, I can say, hey, well, as long as you're up for the digital version, you can do it now. So that's always a nice feeling to just get it out there. So
Yeah, that was a long process. If you started promoting it in the spring, when was even the final copy done? How long did that production take to get going?
yeah, so overall it ended up being like probably it was about an 18-month process between like starting to write the first draft and uh it being totally done and like getting recorded for audiobook and stuff, which happened in June. So it was like, yeah, 17 or 18 months. I finished a lot of this year, like leading up to that, was revisions and it going off to my editor and things like that. So it was like probably a 12-month like first draft process or something like that, 11 months maybe, and then several months of revisions, pause, wait for the feedback from the editor, and then kind of the final push there.
That's a good pace, though, for like a 600-page book.
Yeah. Yeah, it was my longest book, and I moved in the middle of that from Utah to South Dakota with a couple of kids, and yeah, we were kind of in limbo housing wise for a little while, and my wife was changing jobs and all these things, and so it would have been faster had we not moved. I like majorly didn't anticipate, or like just underestimated just how big of a impact that would have moving across a couple of states and dealing with stuff in storage and buying a house somewhere else and all of those things. And so, yeah, normally I'm a bit of a slow writer in general, but yeah, that was longest for me. And part of that was that, and part of it was the longest book. And probably definitely I'd say the most complex book I've written up to this point as well. And so I tried not to like really push it and then just tried to give it the time that it needed and stuff. And so
That's really interesting to hear that you think it's the most complex. All of that stuff was going on with it, and you had such a good pace writing it, and it would have been quicker, like you're saying, without the move, all that type of stuff. What made this one so much, I guess, easier to write, or not easier to write, but a faster pace? Like you knew what you wanted to do that much before diving into it.
Um, I'm very much I have a big vision for the book when I set out, like big picture, and a lot of things in my first draft I'm feeling out and stuff. And so most of the characters, I had a pretty good sense of Malik, the main character, or kind of the main character. Um, at the outset, certainly in the opening scenes, he's the primary point of view at first. And so I started with a good sense of him, and then and I knew I was going to for sure tell it from him and his father's point of views. And so that was like right away, I knew that. And I knew like the opening sequence, I knew exactly where I wanted to start. I wanted to like start it in the middle of the coming of age ritual and all of that. But there was a lot. I'm also like a bit of a pantser. I'm like kind of somewhere in between. But yeah, so
That hybrid model.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons my first draft is fairly slow and I try not to rush it, is because I'm doing things that some people would do in an outlining process that maybe they would spend a month doing, or however long people that really go into detail with that would do, where I go in and like kind of sketch out, I know we're going to go here and here and here, and then I'll like write my opening sequence and then revisit that and be like, okay, I think here I'm going to flesh some things out. This is going to change now and things like that. And so that's kind of a quick rundown of what that looks like. I definitely while I'm writing, I'm figuring out a lot of where things are going to go. And for me, that's a lot of the fun, is not knowing everything as I'm setting out and kind of discovering a lot of things and figuring out. It's like kind of like you're laying out these pieces and starting to figure out, oh, I see how this could fit together here, and this character should interact with this one this way, and these plot elements could converge like this. And that kind of puzzle piecing together is a fun part of the process for me.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that, where it's like, you want to go from A to B to C, but everywhere in between is like, I'm going to just wing it and we'll get there. So
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I really liked the first couple of scenes as well, like knowing that you wanted to start at the coming of age trial. It was actually really funny. I was going to message you. I forgot. I have another message that I'm going to show that I did send you. But while I was doing this, there was like, I was starting to like piece together something on my own, like just from the side, because I had an idea. And I opened the book, and for some weird reason, Malik was the character name that I used also. Like, what the fuck just happened? Delete. Now it's
just, that's really funny.
Onward. I like couldn't think of it, but it was. I meant to say that to you because it made me laugh really hard. Like when I first opened it, I was like, "No fucking way!" But
yeah,
scenes and everything, especially in the beginning, major hooks in me right away, because you kind of find out right off the bat it's one of the stories where no character is essentially safe in it. Especially right off the bat like that. So is that kind of the tone that you wanted to have going in, where it was like, this is going to be a bit of a free for all until the wheels really start going on the story?
Yeah. There was a lot of things that I wanted to accomplish in the opening, and one of them was just I'd never really started a book in the middle like that, but I really love that, especially in films where you just get like thrown in, and we're starting with action. We're learning about this world and the characters in the context of something really intense. And I really wanted to try that. And then I thought it was a great way to get into the dynamic between Malik and his father, between Malik and his best friend Reese, and like really see who the characters are through what they're doing and how they respond to these intense moments and opportunities to be selfless or selfish, and things like that. And then obviously there's a big world building piece to that too, that the trial kind of sets the stage for everything that's to come. And in a lot of ways, it was trying to be like there's this way of plotting, especially in screenplays, where your opening sequence is kind of like a small version picture of what the big story is, and that was kind of what that ends up being. If you get to the end of the story, you can kind of see, like, in a vague sense, but like something like Indiana Jones, you start with him in the middle of a quest, and basically then the whole movie is another quest that is accomplishing something similar in a much bigger and more detailed way. And so that was something I was kind of doing there as well. But yeah, biggest thing was really just showing the characters, showing the world, and getting to see some cool action right off the bat.
Yeah, and it did the job. That's a very good comparison to Indiana Jones, actually. As soon as you, like, I never actually put it together, but as soon as you do that, it mentioned it, it was like, oh, yeah, because what happens at the end of the trial is essentially what they end up. I'm saying I keep things very spoiler-free, or try to at least. If my statement makes no sense because of how spoiler-free I'm being, feel free to say so. But it ends up being what they're fighting over towards the end. That's what they're racing for. And it kind of parallels that beginning, where in the trial, that's what they're racing for. But, it's on a much smaller scale. But, just you pointing that out is like some very cool foreshadowing that I
Yeah.
It's
cool.
cool.
It's one of those you might not even think about it until somebody said it in that way. But yeah, it is. It's kind of a full circle type of a thing. And so.
And I wanted to ask, because this is the first book of yours that I read.
Yeah.
And this is a prequel series to another overlying arc that you have, like your first trilogy and everything. Could you give us some background on that? Because even I'm not 100% familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I wouldn't even necessarily call it a true prequel series, because they're very independent. Like, you don't need to have read anything at all to read either series. There's not coinciding characters or things like that, and so I think of it more as an adjacent series than a true prequel. Although there are lots of pieces of lore and things like that. So the Abyss exists and is a big destination at one point in the Shadow Watch saga, and that's an important place in this. And so there's some like kind of really big picture world building that if you read both, you'll see some connections, like, oh, this eventually becomes this, or that sort of thing. And there's things like that. There's elements that are a little bit so in the Shadow Watch, the people that have magic are called Watchers, and there's a couple of nods that in the Children of the Gods that indicate that some of the magic users in Children of the Gods are kind of not even necessarily predecessors, but kind of eventually they connect across thousands of years and different worlds and things like that. And so, yeah, the Shadow Watch saga, by the end of the series, it kind of starts more small and self-contained. And by the end of the series, you realize there's this whole like kind of universe of interconnected worlds that are connected through these magical gates and things like that. And so some of those pieces completely connect and are understood in a little bit different ways, because they're coming from different worlds and different mythologies and depths of understanding about where they've actually come from, as opposed to maybe what their culture has said, or what their history has said, and some things like that. So
interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check out the second. Well, not second trilogy, the original. But I saw some other people commenting on Goodreads, because when I was, finishing up and posting the rating there, I think James Harwood, who is awesome. He could really in-depth stuff also, and he was like, "Yeah, I saw Shadows Watch. It came across my list, and it was one of my top 10 of last year. So I jumped into this, and I was like, his opinion carries a lot of weight also. So I was like, oh, sick. All right,
yeah.
So I definitely wanted to get background on that. One of my other question I always ask is, this book did such an awesome job of world building, along with having like a cast of characters, where I think I liked every one of them. Like, there wasn't, every once in a while you read a book and you turn the page and it's like from this character's POV, and you're like, shit.
Yep.
It happens. Like, it just does. Like, but this one, every one of them was very fun to read, to get into their mindset. And it was enjoyable. Even awesome. Like the characters that weren't, kind of going against what the good guys were doing, it was still fun to read about because they were great characters.
Yeah.
But how did you tread the line of that world building, which you already said was so complex in this book, especially with having the characters that were so easily relatable?
Yeah. Yeah, the balance, I think I really came into it viewing this as a character first story, even though it was going to have a lot of world building and a lot of things, that I always approached it wanting to dig deep into that. Some of it, I think, was just some of the inherent conflict that I really tried to infuse into every character as I was digging into them. That they're all complex. They all have their own motivations, and you have an element where you don't necessarily know exactly where they're coming from or where they're going to end up. And so I think, or I hope, that that element of mystery of like, exactly who is this person and how are they going to interact with this new information or this event, and how's that going to change them. I just really tried to dig deep into that, and to really dig into like what do they care about most, and let kind of just let them react to some of the events that are happening, and really some of the relationships between characters. Because one thing I knew fairly early on in writing was that I wanted to tell it from every point of view in the conflict that takes place on the island. And so we have the three Faltari, who are kind of all on the same side, but have their own opinions about what they're doing and what side they should be on at different points. And then we have somebody from the Empire, somebody from the rebels as well, and wanted to I think one of the biggest things I wanted to do is really humanize everybody and really dig into, like, I didn't want anybody to come across as just this kind of stock person, but to be a really deep character, and flesh that out as things went on. So
well, you did a great job with that, because, like I said, every character was a lot of fun to read. They were very fleshed out, and it was well done quickly. I'm going to share a screenshot. I did a horrible job of a spoiler on this one, but something in here where, again, this is like right after meeting a character, and I couldn't figure out how to do it on the MacBook, but I just like put something there to block a name. But an instant reaction where I was shook, and things were going on, and that blew my mind, and that was like very quick in that character's story that
Yeah.
that turned everything. So kind of piecing it together, I know we talked about like how you like writing everything, like the little hybrid aspect of it.
Mhm.
For each of the character arcs, was that something that you knew going in? Like, did you know that character? Who was on what side? I should say. Like, were those pieces?
Sir, in the context of the one you're talking about, definitely, I knew exactly what was going to happen with that character the moment they got to the island and where that was going to go. I that whole like kind of explosive sequence, that kind of without getting spoilerly, there's a big explosive moment and it kind of shakes everything that happens forward. I've had a number of people say they really thought the book was going to go in A or B direction, and that was the moment that was like, oh, I don't know where this is going to go, and that's been pretty fun. So I knew that was going to happen, and that I probably didn't like 100% know exactly like all the characters are. This is going to happen to all of them here, but I knew basically at the outset of writing the book, like there's going to be this big moment that's going to turn everything on its head and kind of shake things for everybody. And that aspect I knew. There are things that surprised me or that I didn't necessarily like know exactly. This arc's going to end here. Some of that gets fleshed out, but the main arcs of where everybody ends up was pretty much there from like when I started delving into those characters. I had a pretty good idea of where that I would say probably some of the more minor ones, they have a little bit more of a little more discovery to them perhaps than kind of our core set of characters. I had a pretty good sense of this is where they're all going to wind up.
Very, very cool, because it was a lot of fun watching that, and like I said, it would never let up. Like, this was probably the fastest read 600-page book like that I've read in a long time. Where I've like opened it and I was on page, like, just for instance, like 890 or something like that.
Yeah.
And like an hour went by and I'm on like 157. I'm like, holy shit! Like I have to like work and do things, but this one, rapid fire. It was very easy to read for being such a complex story full of all of this stuff. There's like, I'm not even gonna fully get into all the political aspects and everything going on. It was very well done with a bunch of different genres put together. And I know, like, when we were talking before, the kind of, I guess not mean two influences, but two authors that were comparable. I guess potato. Were that John Gwynne and Ron Cahill were those two. Besides those two, who else do you think was a big influence on this? Because I thought there was a lot of, especially in like the slower aspects of the world building, it was very Tad Williams-y, where it was like nice and fully fleshed out along the way. What authors do you have as inspiration behind this?
Yeah, I mean, I think a little bit of everything that I love bleeds into anything that I write. Definitely, like George R.R. Martin is a huge influence on anything that I write and always has been. And I think he writes really deep, complex characters as well. And I actually haven't read Tad Williams, so I wish I could say that he was an influence, but he's been on my I need to read a couple of those, like basically like him and Feist are both two that I feel like I really should have read, but I haven't. So
I missed the boat too. I'm very behind on both of them.
yeah, especially with those broken binding editions for both of those that have come out that are just stunning. I've really wanted to check out both of those series, but yeah, George's definitely a big one. Yeah, John Gwynne recently, I've really liked just the way that like he goes really deep into characters as well, and also has a lot of complexity, people on different sides, and things like that. And that's something that I just find really interesting. Is diving deep with characters and really fleshing out people that see the world very differently, but also have a capacity to have their minds changed or changed by some of their experiences and things like that. Yeah, so those would be definitely some. Yeah. Even I mean truly like even not the characters, but kind of like vibes wise, I guess, like Lord of the Rings is always in there as well. And there was when I set out to write this book, I really wanted to capture the spirit of some of those, and also like I mentioned in the acknowledgments to this one that there's a lot of World War II influences as well in like a really vague way, but kind of the like Band of Brothers is one of my favorite things.
Best shows ever.
The show and the book's actually really good too. And that aspect, like in later books in the series, is going to be even more relevant. And some of the situations, like I also really like books like All the Light We Cannot See, which is like a soldier and a civilian girl that's part of the French resistance. And so there was some aspects of those too that probably more the spirit of it than anything, like being confronted with something that is way beyond you, that is a great evil, although I think that I approach it a little bit in a bit more modern way of like a less this is good, this is evil, but it's more complex than that. But the spirit of the characters, like one of my favorite moments in Lord of the Rings, or probably my favorite really, is like that part where Sam is like kind of given his speech about there's still good left in the world and it's worth fighting for. And like that kind of that spirit is something that always was really bleeding into what I was writing, even though it's like way different and is like situationally not connected, but like that vibe was something that I want to I want to feel, you know, in the world today, and that I really wanted to bring to this book. So,
and it definitely came across, especially as you're mentioning, it was done a little more modern, like a vibe to it, because like you said, it's not, these guys are good, these guys are bad, which frankly gets like a little boring.
yeah.
Like, you
Yeah,
don't need to be told that. Like you can kind of like context and, you know, piece everything together. So the way that this was done was a lot more fun to read about, especially hearing, I was a history major in college, so hearing that World War II, that type of vibe was brought into it. I do remember reading that in the acknowledgments, but I didn't know about that other book that you mentioned. So
yeah.
was that another one of like your big interests, that period of history?
Like World War II.
That era, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a lot of people probably, I find that just a really compelling era. And yeah, I think like thinking about like in a lot of ways I think of like magic and dragons and the ways that those impact the world in a similar light to the way that like in the 20th century we had this huge influx in technology and all these things, and it totally changed warfare and all of these things, and I kind of see those in a little bit of a similar light in the ways that they certainly for this series impact some of the things that are able to happen. And there's some other technologies in this too that I won't bring in for spoilers, but there's some there's some cool things that people are able to do with magic, and some of that is I don't know, there's just some parallels, and then certainly the spirit of like by the end of this book things are kind of explode and are going to go pretty epic in the following books. And so this is like a really contained story on the island, but there's lots of things coming, and there's a big world out there. And yeah, World War II is just really interesting to me, the ways that impacted civilians of so many countries, that impacted soldiers who were drafted and sent, and that's their coming of age period, is getting drafted and training and thinking probably you're gonna die in this conflict. And yeah, there's a lot to draw upon when thinking about a big scale fantasy conflict that goes across nations and things like that. So
I think the coolest part of all of the influences that you've mentioned so far is that all of them were kind of put together and molded, and you made it very distinctly your own. Because there's like, especially like you mentioned just now with the magic. I was going to mention it again. I'm avoiding the spoilers, but the magic is called Ish. And what was the background behind introducing that? Because that is mainly with Malik and his dad. As the shamans of his tribe, but
yeah.
what made you want to focus on just having those few people and their ability to do it, as opposed to it being a more general type thing? And I'm assuming maybe the general type thing we may see down the line. You don't need to answer that or anything.
Yeah,
But
yeah, definitely. It's like it's a world that has magic, but has really limited, at least in this corner of the world, because there is another corner of the world that gets mentioned a little bit and has had their hand on some things that happen in the world, but you kind of have these opposing viewpoints that certainly the Attican Empire, who rules this corner of the world, their dragons control everything, and magic being this widespread thing would pose a challenge. So they really keep that very limited. There's a couple of schools of kind of approaching magic. They use it in a very mechanized way, like it's for producing tools and weapons and things that have added power, but it's not something that humans wield in the way that the Faltari do. And because they're so one of the really interesting things to me exploring with them, which is really kind of a big heart of the story, is like they have abilities that could greatly impact the world, but they are a very secluded, kind of idyllic people that has basically just said, we're not going to, we've seen what this does, like what power does, and we're gonna choose something else. And the cost of how that's bought is a big kind of linchpin in the story. But yeah, so I knew pretty early on that it was like they know magic really well, but nobody else does. And They view it, it's kind of this two opposing viewpoints of like the Empire that views it in this very utilitarian way, and then you've got the Voltari that it's like essence, it's the breath of the gods, it's something that is a part of all things in a way, and that they can draw upon, and it's like it's a sacred thing, it's a spiritual thing for them, and that was really a big part of their worldview, is kind of how they view themselves in relation to that magic and the gods.
And it was very well done, especially with the cost of the magic, because there's nothing worse when someone has the ability to do magic and comes in and is like, I'm going to throw a fireball and then a shield and then do this, and you're just like, holy shit. Like,
yeah.
There's got to be something to tone this down a little bit. So again, without getting into any spoilers, I thought the magic aspect was very well done and realistic, and it definitely made it much more impactful when it had to get used.
Cool, I appreciate that.
Yeah, it was fun to read about. My brother chiming in, mechanized magic would be a good band name. Which it would. We've seen a lot of very weird heavy metal recently, so I think
yeah,
that would kind of kick in. I need to hit. Sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I said I support that mechanized magic. I'd listen to them.
A cover band, we'll start that. Neither of us can play an instrument. It'll be terrible, but a really good name.
Yeah.
I am pivoting back because I just realized I didn't share the cover, and I wanted to lead it into my next topic really quickly. But that is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Really one of like the better covers I've seen. Probably that's movie poster worthy. And I just wanted to ask, if you who the artist was, because I like to give them shout outs also.
Yeah.
That always blows my mind because I fuck up stick figures. Like I can't do anything.
I know, right?
Like you see things like this, it's like, oh yeah, like that's actual, like that's a work of art.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to do that, and then I'm gonna take from something on the cover and lead it into my next question.
Sure. Yeah. So the artwork was done by Joe Requeza, who's super talented artist. I've worked with him on a couple illustrations for the deluxe editions for my Shadow Watch books as well. And so I'd done a couple pieces with him and felt like his style was really going to work for that. And then the general design and typography was by Rachel St. Clair, or Claymore Covers, she works as. And yeah, she's done a bunch of stuff that I've collaborated with her on several things, and she's awesome as well. And so, yeah, I kind of had a vision of like of that scene that I wanted to capture, and a little bit of kind of the classic meets modern vibe that I felt we could capture, and they took and ran with it. So I'm super grateful to have worked with them, because a lot of certainly the success of the Kickstarter was owed to the quality of the work that they did. So they're awesome.
Yeah, that was one hell of a line they threw out, because every person I've talked to was just like, oh yeah, like even in the chat here, I see like 3 or 4 people saying it's moving up the TBR just based on like that thing alone. It's so sick. But one of the other things I thought was really cool, it kind of goes back with how, the people we were talking about, and you made it your own. On the cover, bunch of dragons. In the story, dragon eggs, very prevalent. Mm-hmm. But dragons themselves may not play the biggest role in this story. So was that something, what made you want to decide to do that? And they are much more of a background threat, where when they show up, when they show up, it is like, you can feel the fear in the pages. But again, is this a trilogy that is going to be happening? Or
I think so. I set out to write a trilogy, and I've done that before and written a quartet, or whatever you want to call a 4-book series. And there's probably a possibility that'll happen with this one. But I will know probably about halfway into book 2, I think, what how much I'm gonna need to tie up all that's coming. Because yeah, book 1 is a little more self-contained and very focused on the island, and by the end, things get pretty big
You can
and
tell. It's
are
like,
going to be going in a lot of bigger directions, which I'm a little intimidated to to get into, but to get into all of them. But yeah. Um sorry, what was the what was the rest? I feel like I
I
answered
actually don't
part of
even
the
think I
question.
officially asked a question. I think we just were just like, yeah, that rules. But it was
Yeah, so dragons are maybe not as prevalent as you might think. Dragon eggs are basically everywhere. It's definitely, I saw this as the dragon egg story. And I a lot of it was situational that I really wasn't sure exactly when I first started writing exactly how far along we were going to get with that. But the biggest thing is that dragons are controlled by the Empire, and they're a big threat. They control the world, but unless you're like directly opposing them, you're not going to get in the line of fire. And so, situationally, a lot of it kind of came down to how do we get these into the hands of someone else, and the ways that came together. It kind of just had to happen that way, I guess. That I didn't feel like I could do it any other way as I was going. That it didn't feel right. I didn't want it to. I kind of think of like there's a couple of different sort of brands of dragon story, and there's like the true dragon, what consider a true dragon rider. That's like you get your egg and you bond quickly, and that egg hatches, and we're off and flying. And I didn't think that was possible basically for this one, just by the nature of how the characters came together and the situation with the Empire and some things like that. And so I kind of let the world building dictate a lot of that. And I think if you read the book, you'll get to the end and be like, we've got a lot coming. And so if you get to the end and you want a little more dragon, don't worry. There's a lot to come. But yeah, I kind of from the outset saw this as the dragon egg story, and the what you might expect from a little bit more of a dragon rider, you'll see more of in the other books in the series. So
I thought that was very cool because it was not like a letdown or anything, but like you see them on the cover, so you're like, okay, we're gonna get some drink, and they are used very sparsely. And
yeah,
I thought that was like a very cool choice of yours that you did that because it made it a lot cooler, especially like the few times that they show up and some other stuff going on.
yeah.
At the
I
same
wanted it to be really impactful when they showed up. I wanted it to be really epic, and um it's also coming from largely from the point of view of people who have no interaction with dragons, and do have a lot of interaction with dragon eggs, but they have chosen not to participate in that world. Like they've forsaken it, and I tried to just trust that that was gonna work. And so far it seems like it has worked for people. So I'm hopeful that that the majority of people will feel that way. Yeah.
I would think so, and I thought that was also a very interesting choice because I don't think that's a spoiler or anything, but the beginning, they're trying to get dragon eggs, and
Yeah.
this can't be spoiled. It's in like the second chapter, but
Yeah, it's in the first few chapters. I think that's fair.
it's got to be early enough, and it's like they break them, and especially like not having dragons in real life, you're reading it, and you're just like, wait, no, 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 and it breaks. Ah, shit. But
Yeah.
it was a very interesting way because every other book and story, everything like that, you see them. It's like they go into giant chests full of cotton to not
Yep.
break that, all this stuff, and then in the
Yep.
first couple of pages here, it's like we're throwing it in. But what made that something you wanted to focus on, just as like a complete pivot from what we usually see?
Yeah, I think I don't know if that I think I was just all probably as I was getting into it was trying to think of ways and was just trying to explore something a little bit different and like he kind of mentioned, like I wanted it to have my own feel. Like I didn't want to write a dragon story that just felt like your standard dragon story. I wanted to bring my own flair to it, I guess. And so, and wanted to turn some tropes on their head a little bit, perhaps, or just do some unexpected things. And so, um, definitely, as I was exploring this story in the early parts of the draft, there was a lot of kind of searching for how can I approach this in a different way, or do something how can this be surprising and some things like that and a lot of it probably just came more organically or that was the story that needed to be told somewhere in my psyche and that's just what came out so so I don't want to make it sound like it was too intentional some of it was just that's how it came in the flow so
Which is just it's so cool. I like getting the peek behind the curtain on everything. So especially when things work out like that because it's kind of like you said, taking tropes and turning it on their heads. So you don't know how it's going to work, and this has worked out very well.
Mhm.
One of my favorite aspects of the story, like I said, I already mentioned it, but I felt like it went by so quick. Like you're reading it, and again, it's like 600 pages. It flew. Like I read it very fast. Um, there were. It's funny at the beginning you said you were in a move because I'm in downstairs and what is going. This is technically my new office, but it's not fully done yet. And one of the questions I always like to ask is I'm not a creative person at all, like at all. Uh, but it kind of ties back into what you said because you were moving and how hectic everything was. I had my book and my copy, that is, and as I was reading quotes and lines for things that you wrote, which were fantastic, I was taking loose leaf paper and marking it to say, I don't have a Kindle, I did that. We're getting ready to do this. I grab my book, every piece of loose leaf falls out and flutters onto the floor. So I
yeah
was like, great, okay. But
okay cool
so usually I say I'm not going to read it because I won't do it justice, especially you have an audiobook, which I haven't listened to. I read it, but I heard the audiobook narration is amazing. But
yeah awesome
what I wanted to ask you, longest get around ever, when you're writing something and something that a reader or a listener, anyone will really take a note of it. Whether it's on the Kindle, highlight it, use a sticky note, anything. When you write something that impactful or meaningful, or however you want to view it, do you know as you're writing it, or is that more of a I have to get some feedback on it, and then, or maybe like an editor points it out, or when I do a revision, I see it and go, "Wow, that really fucking hit hard." Because
yeah
I just don't get how you guys do that. Because there are lines throughout the entire thing where it was like, "That is beautiful, poetic, inspirational, like all these things," and it's like, do you know that when you're doing it?
Pro- probably yes and no. I think like in the middle, like I think a lot of this come in really big character moments, and I think I know when I'm in a big character moment, even in the first draft, for the most part. And so there's a way that like as you're writing it, or certainly right after, perhaps like, oh wow, that's a really big moment for them, or something like that. And then in editing, I definitely there's certain moments that I can think of where I was like, this is a really big moment, or this line I think can really hit hard, and I'll really focus that. And um sometimes my editor will point that out, or there were times when she was like, this is a big moment, we need we need more here, or more, get more in their head, or that sort of thing. And so it's a little bit of all of those, I would say. That like there's this, I think the majority of the time as I'm writing a big moment, I feel like I have a sense. There's some times where I'm like, I want to make this kind of like, not necessarily quotable, but like something that's like I want this line to hit, or this paragraph or something like that, in a way that you don't treat every single paragraph that way. And that, yeah, my editor helps with some of those as well. And so it's kind of an interplay. It's kind of an organic thing that you then tease out more.
It's interesting because I know this is going to sound mega naive and ridiculous, but like I never realized up until a couple years ago how impactful a good editor can make a story.
Oh yeah.
Which is like, it sounds stupid like when you're thinking about it, because you're like, I write it and then they edit it, make sure it flows nicely, and then I get the art reader feedback and all that stuff. But every person that I talked to was just like, even when I had Anthony Ryan on and I was talking about the big change where he went from self-pub to trad, and he was like, don't skimp on an editor.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit. Like, you kind of, it's just something like I, as a non-author, would never have like picked up on. So it's fun to hear that collaboration.
Yeah, it's huge. Especially like writing such a solitary thing. And even if you're in a writing group or something like that, like so much of the story isn't likely to run past those people. And yeah, having somebody dive deep into the story with you, somebody who certainly is tweaking tons of things and pointing out things you do a lot or don't do enough of, and things like that. And then for me, like that impacts my final passes through the book after that a lot. That there's things that she pointed out that I was like, ooh, I really need to watch for that, like in several of these moments that are similar or stuff like that. That's like, I need to make sure that I'm diving deeper in these kinds of moments, or need to watch for this this thing that I do, or point, like a big thing in this book was like, we have so much going on and different characters who view things in different ways. And one of the things that she really helped me with in the editing was really focusing on clarity of language, especially in the prose itself. And so that was something that I was always in those late passes. Like there were specific things that are like, we need more clarity here. I need to see this more, or understand this more, all these things. And then I was really taking that feedback and trying to apply it as much as I could everywhere else. And so, yeah, editors are amazing.
Yeah, it's interesting how all of that comes together to make something so awesome. And my last question before I pivot to something else, but I wanted to see, since this book you said took around a year for the draft, 18 months of the working on, are you taking a much relief break for the moment, or are you diving into books too?
Yeah, I've kind of been taking a break over the summer. Basically, like I was totally done working on it by the end of May, and it got recorded for audiobook. And so I like did one last, like as I was listening through, proofread of everything while I was listening to the audiobook. And so by mid-June, it's been done, and has been in wrapping, in formatting, and all these things with the physical book. But the actual like creative work has been done for like 3 months or so now. And so I did take a break after that. I also had another Kickstarter for a Shadow Watch book in July, and the Kickstarters take a lot of work. And so I'm mostly focused on that and getting everything ready for the physical book for this. And then I had a novelette, I guess, that I had to write for one of those special editions that was back in the Shadow Watch world. And I wrapped that up, and now I'm just now getting into really diving into the next book. And so, yeah, it took about a month of not really doing a whole lot creatively and a lot more like admin type things. And then wrote a really long short story that's like 60 pages or something like that, and that was totally unrelated, and so that was nice to do something creative. I've played around a little bit with probably a prequel short story to this that I'll probably keep playing around with as well. But yeah, I've kind of just played around with some small things. And that's kind of nice to write something small after writing a 600 pager, and get to the end without having to do nearly so much work. And so now I'm finally diving in, now that the book officially digitally launched and everything's ready for the physical edition, except they're sending me these title page tip-ins that I need to sign, and then once we do that, then those books will print. And so now I'm kind of in a space where I found that I have a hard time juggling a lot of things, and so my best writing is when it's like, okay, I've got a few months and I don't really have all these little things that are pulling at my attention, and I can now just really dive deep with the book. And so, and certainly for book 2 for this, I've spent quite a bit of time like thinking through a lot of things, because I got to the end of book 1, and there's a lot of things that I need to flesh out about the world in book 2, and some things like that maybe gets hinted at in book 1, or we meet a character from there, but we don't know. There's a lot we don't know yet about a lot of these outside places beyond the island. And so I was in a kind of a brainstorming phase for quite a while, and now I'm just starting to dip my feet into book 2.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a lot for someone who says they like focusing on one thing. It's like, I do novelettes, got the admin work done, and I'm starting book 2. It's like, Jesus.
Yeah.
And now for a complete pivot, and I know my brother just said this book moved up his TBR. It's about to leave his TBR. Because we are going to talk football for a second. And
yeah.
Russ, he is a Bronco fan.
That's right.
I never minded. You guys are going to murder us in approximately 6 days. My brother on here is a big Colts fan, diehard Colts.
Okay.
So, yeah, at least you guys will be fighting late in the year for potential playoff spots, hopefully.
Yeah, they've surprised me this year. They surprised us a couple of weeks ago.
I don't get it. I don't understand anything at this point. But what do you like to do outside of writing for fun? But I bring up football because we were talking about that before. But what else do you like to do?
Yeah, I enjoy sports quite a bit. Certainly this time of year, football's a lot of fun. I love spending time in the mountains, and that probably bled into this book as well. Yeah, certainly in the opening sequence, me and my brother climb 14ers in Colorado. We used to do it every year. We just did one last weekend, which are 14,000 foot peaks in Colorado in the Rockies. But yeah, love hiking, camping, and things like that. I have 2 little boys, and so a lot of my free time these days is chasing after them, riding their bikes, and some things like that. We tried fishing this summer, which was fun. My oldest has just started junior kindergarten, so they're young kids. But
That's
yeah,
awesome.
outside things would be the big ones. I used to play music quite a bit, but now that I don't have a lot of, most of my creative energy just goes into books these days. But I used to play guitar and some things like that, and still do every now and then. But
It's funny to see what it pivots to. Like the outdoor thing, I totally get. I think that's way more constructive almost. My cousin lives in Montana, big rock climber. Uh,
yeah, yeah,
so I used to go with him inside when I was like semi in shape, and it was a
yeah.
lot of fun. You try and do it now, I'm fucking cooked. I think you get like 2 feet off the ground probably.
Yeah,
Uh,
before my wife and I had kids, we went to a climbing gym a lot, and that was a lot of fun.
yeah, it's awesome. And like
Yeah,
I
it's
used
a
to play
it's a
guitar
really fun workout. Like,
hard. Like
yeah,
it is brutal. It's fun that you're getting your kids involved in that though. We have a 2.5, not a half yet, but a little over 2-year-old girl, and my wife is due again in February with
cool.
another
Congrats,
girl.
man.
Thank you. So I will be girl dad,
Yeah, yeah,
boy dad, but it's fun the way things kind of pivot, like you said, what you guys used to
you're
do before the kids. Now you're chasing.
yeah. You have a period where there's there's not a whole lot of time for other things, especially when you have something like writing books or something that you want to pour time into. There's not a ton of time for a lot of other things, or just it's like a couple, like now I go, my wife and I used to go hiking every weekend, and now it's like if we try to go hiking with the kids, we get to the creek at the beginning of the hike and we just throw rocks into the creek for 30 minutes and call it good. So yeah, we like to do stuff outside, but it's just kind of at the pace of what your kids can handle at the time and stuff. Like I kind of missed the time when they were in packs because we could still cover some ground and they just pass out in the pack.
Exactly. Like you're just
And now it's like I want to look at every every little thing and investigate every rock and stuff, which is awesome. But when you're like, I want to kind of want to just cover a couple miles here.
yeah, exactly. Like we got to move a little bit. Like even now, I go into daycare with my daughter, and she takes 3 feet, and then just like looks and just like a picture on the wall. I'm like, no, like, come on, come on. Like, we
Yeah,
gotta go a
it's
little bit.
always like anytime that you want to really get somewhere fast is when they drag their feet the most or have the most
Instant.
things to point out.
Mm-hmm. The other day we did a walker. We have a dog, so we do walks around the block and everything. And
Yeah.
so he's like, I want to get out of the wagon. He full on sentences and just starts dragging us by our hands. And that same walk that we do in like 30, 35 minutes took like an hour because it was just stopping, picking up a stick, and then being like, I don't like this one, walking onto someone's lawn, getting a different one. It's like, it's a stick. Like, it's but it's a lot of fun. It's cool.
Yeah.
Um, and I know we were talking a bit before about the history, World War II stuff. You mentioned Band of Brothers, the books, and also the show. You a big show movie guy?
Definitely. I don't watch a ton of movies these days, largely because it's really hard to get like 2.5 hour
It's impossible.
sections of time, and so when I have time, it's almost like, well, 45-minute, 15-minute episodes, way more doable. And so I definitely watch more shows these days. My wife and I just started rewatching Stranger Things to get ready for the final season, and that's been really fun. Yeah, Severance I really liked this year. Arcane more last year, but that was another show that I really liked a lot. So definitely get into those. Yeah. Enjoy shows, don't have nearly as much time as I'd like. Like I've been wanting to watch Andor for
Same.
Since everybody watched it, and I haven't gotten around to it, and so there's always things that other people are watching that I wish I could keep up with, and I have to kind of prioritize. Like, okay, I really know that I want to watch this, and I'll watch it, and then sometimes stuff that's really good, I end up missing out on for longer than I'd like, but.
And it's funny you say Andor because I haven't watched it yet either. Like by the time I get to like doing this or reading, much less writing, but other stuff, I go upstairs. It's like 11:15. I turned on the first 2 episodes of Andor probably for 9 months, and I fell asleep like the same part every time. I was like,
yeah, I've watched the first episode.
yeah. Like
and then
15 times, and everyone's like, "No, it doesn't suck. You're just old." I'm like, "I'm 35. It's not that bad." But I just started. I'm getting caught up on Succession because
nice.
I was on the 4th season of that, and then my daughter was born and pivoted. I was like, "We're gonna watch The Sopranos while you're in the We did that. Now I'm finishing this, and that show is out of control, like a actual masterpiece of TV. So it's been fun to jump in there.
Yeah, that's another one that I've wanted to get to and haven't.
If you need a time killer, that's a good one because like they're hour-long episodes, but they have enough scene breaks where you can like pause it after like 15 minutes and then the next scene, like it's all set pieces pretty much. So it's like, okay, you can watch this a little bit, but like we've been diving back and watching other stuff. Like we just watched Breaking Bad again around.
And I rewatched that during COVID, right after my oldest was born.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so good.
And we had my wife's cousin's wedding, and the father of the bride was Gus from Breaking Bad.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I'm like,
that's awesome.
I was like starstruck. Like you gave it such a, it was a beautiful wedding. Like, her cousin was so cool. His cousin's wife, the wife was so cool. And like, he came over and was just like, "Hi, I'm John Carlo." And I was like, "Yeah, I know."
Gus Fring.
I know. I was like, "This is the hand that killed all of those guys." But it's been a lot of good stuff. But it's fun to go on rewatches when you don't have enough time.
Yeah.
But besides my final question here, besides the other stuff that you've been working on, the novelette, the book 2 coming up, if you had to pick, what genre would you write next? This is always like a little bit of a tricky one because I like hearing what people haven't done yet but would love to give a try.
Yeah. I've had a couple of things that are both kind of a little horror adjacent that I have written like opening scenes for, and I have no idea if I'll get to them or if they'll turn into anything or not. But one is kind of an urban fantasy meets horror, very character focused, more like an urban fantasy Stephen King, but with some like investigator like vibes and some stuff like that. That I think would be cool to get to. I've thought about the character quite a bit, but when I'll get to that or not, I don't know. And then I've had another one that's like kind of like a Annihilation-ish, like weird, maybe a little Stranger Things aspect to like weird supernatural sci-fi horror mishmash type thing like that. That's kind of been sitting there in the back of my mind. One of those would probably be the most likely. Something sci-fi potentially too, like legit space sci-fi. But we'll see. I've remained fairly closely. I wrote a lit RPG series, so it was still a fantasy world, but that was a bit of a deviation in between these two series. And then I've got a lot of epic fantasy still that I'd like to write, and so it's always which one's nagging at me the most. And that was kind of when I decided to write Children of the Gods, it was just the one that was like I'd thought about it for years, and it came together, and I was like, I've got a really clear vision of where this is going, and rolled with it. And so when I get to the end of this series, then we'll see. Or maybe there'll be some sort of palate cleanser that I'll throw in there, but we'll see.
I'm excited to check out all of them because that all sounds cool. But like I said, this book, Children of the Gods, I loved it. I thought it was really amazing, especially my reading your work for the first time. I thought it was a perfect stepping stone in. Like we said, it was complex, but full of great characters. The world building was on point. The story was great, which, kind of goes without saying. We talked about all the other stuff, and it was like, oh, wait, the plot actually was great too. But I loved it. And, I hope that you get the success rightfully deserved with it. I'm glad the digital's out. Everything else is coming too. So,
yeah, I appreciate it, man. I'm really pumped that you liked it, and appreciate you taking the time to read it and taking the time to chat and everything. So yeah, I'm really glad that you liked it, and glad that everything works for you.
It does. Now I'm anxiously awaiting book 2. I'm like, stop talking to me. Get back in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I appreciate it a lot. And this actually flew by. Like, I looked at the clock a second ago. I was like, an hour 10. Hell yeah. But
yep.
One kicks in, and it's like, yeah, I should do these for 2 hours. And it's like, yeah. But yeah, thank you for coming on. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Can you just, I always mean to put in the YouTube link details, like your socials, but where can people go to find you online?
Yeah, probably I'm most on social media. I'm probably most active on X, for better or worse. And mostly I'm just old habits, and that's been my preferred format. Although I do a fair bit on Instagram as well, and my website, author.klopfenstein.com, would probably be the other spot, and you can probably get anywhere else from there. So yeah.
And when in doubt, just Google it.
Yeah, when in doubt, just Google it. And yeah, hopefully it'll correct your spelling if you get it wrong.
But yeah, dude, thank you again for joining. Like I said, this was awesome, and I appreciate it very much. I'm sure everyone else does as well.
Yeah. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. And yeah, really enjoyed the chat. So
thanks, man. You are welcome back anytime, especially after football season. I don't have to
yeah.
But yeah, thanks again, and have a good rest of your night, man.
Yeah, thanks, you too, man.